The defining conflict. The battle for a multipolar world versus a unipolar hegemony. The struggle for the future of global governance. Whether it will be a multipolar world where several powers coexist and balance each other, or a unipolar one dominated by an elite few, has been shaped by a series of pivotal conflicts. Among these, one particular war stands out as the most significant in shaping the trajectory of global power dynamics: the Cold War. Though not a conventional war in the traditional sense, the Cold War's protracted ideological and geopolitical conflict between the United States and the Soviet Union, USSR, has had enduring implications for the modern world. It epitomized the struggle between a multipolar vision of international relations and a unipolar one dominated by a singular hegemon. In the context of the Rockefeller and Rothschild influence, the Cold War can be viewed as a critical battle in the larger war for global dominance by an elite few versus a world characterized by multiple, often competing, centers of power. The Cold War, a struggle for global influence. The Cold War, 1947 to 1991, was at its core a battle between two competing visions of global order. On one side was the United States, representing a capitalist, democratic, and increasingly unipolar vision, backed by Western Europe, NATO, and powerful economic interests, including the Rockefeller and Rothschild families. On the other side was the Soviet Union, which promoted a socialist, multipolar world where power was more diffused among different nation-states and ideological blocs. The Cold War was not fought on traditional battlefields, but through proxy wars, nuclear arms races, espionage, and economic competition. This ideological battle represented more than just the fight between capitalism and communism. It was a contest over who would dictate the future world order. Would it be a world led by a single superpower with a global network of allies and economic systems favoring the elite 1%? Or would it be a world with multiple power centers, allowing for greater diversity in governance and economic models? The Rockefeller and Rothschild influence. The Rockefeller and Rothschild families have often been cited as symbolic representations of the elite capitalist class, wielding significant influence over global finance, politics, and media. During the Cold War, their interests were closely aligned with those of the Western Bloc, which sought to maintain and expand a unipolar world order dominated by the United States and its allies. The Rockefellers, through their control of major oil companies and philanthropic organizations, and the Rothschilds, through their vast banking empire, played crucial roles in shaping the economic policies of the Western Bloc. They were instrumental in promoting a global financial system that favored capitalism and, by extension, a unipolar world dominated by Western powers. The Bretton Woods system, the establishment of the World Bank, and the International Monetary Fund, IMF, were all initiatives that reinforced this unipolar vision. However, the multipolar aspirations of the Soviet Union and its allies posed a significant challenge to this vision. The USSR sought to create a world where no single nation could dominate, promoting alliances with developing nations and supporting anti-colonial movements worldwide. This vision, while flawed and ultimately unsuccessful, represented a genuine attempt to counter the unipolar ambitions of the West. The end of the Cold War, a Pyrrhic victory for unipolarity? The collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991 was widely interpreted as the definitive victory of the unipolar world order. The United States emerged as the world's sole superpower, with its economic and military dominance seemingly unchallenged. The 1990s and early 2000s were characterized by the expansion of Western-led globalization, the spread of liberal democracy, and the strengthening of international institutions that aligned with Western interests. However, this unipolar moment was short-lived. The rapid economic rise of China, the resurgence of Russia under Vladimir Putin, and the emergence of regional powers such as India and Brazil have challenged the notion of a unipolar world. These developments signal a return to a more multipolar world, where multiple centers of power coexist and sometimes compete, rather than a single global hegemon. The future of global power dynamics. Today, the world stands at a crossroads between these two competing visions. The unipolar world, championed by the West and supported by elite interests like the Rockefellers and Rothschilds, is increasingly under threat. The multipolar world, while not yet fully realized, is gaining momentum as new powers emerge and assert their influence on the global stage. The rise of BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, the growing influence of regional organizations like the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, SCO, and the increasing importance of non-Western financial institutions challenge the dominance of the Western-led global order. These developments suggest that the future of global governance will likely be more complex and decentralized than the unipolar world envisioned by the elite 1%. In this context, the Cold War was not just a historical event, but a foundational conflict that continues to shape the struggle for the future of global power. It was the most important battle in the war for a multipolar world, where power is more evenly distributed versus a unipolar one, where an elite few rule over the vast majority. Conclusion. The Cold War remains the defining conflict in the battle for global dominance between a unipolar and a multipolar world. While the immediate aftermath of the Cold War seemed to favor the unipolar vision championed by the West and its elite backers, the resurgence of multipolarity in recent years suggests that this battle is far from over. The future of global governance will depend on whether emerging powers can successfully challenge the dominance of the elite few and create a world order that is more balanced, just, and inclusive. In this ongoing struggle, the legacy of the Cold War will continue to be a crucial reference point for understanding the dynamics of global power in the 21st century.